today. Men and women of God, let me tell you something. In our middle seasons, because it's only a season, in our middle season, we must remember what God has spoken. In other words, if you find yourself in between something right now, you have to remember what God has spoken. So here was Israel, here was Judah in this middle, and they said, man, we're going to be stuck here for a while. And God gave them a word. He says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. A close look at this verse helps us to understand what this scripture is really speaking to. This scripture is really speaking not to the fact that God is going to deliver us in the morning, although every now and then God does deliver us in the morning. He's not speaking to the fact that God is going to make it better right now, although every now and then God does make it better right now. But if we're going to be true to what the text was talking about, if we're going to really shout about what Jeremiah was saying in his text, what was saying is this. There is a Christian blogger out of France by the name of Mary DeMuth, and Sister DeMuth says this. She says Jeremiah 29 and 11 doesn't mean what we think it means. She says the heart of the verse is not that we would escape our lot, but that we would learn to thrive in the midst of it. Men and women of God, I'm trying to help somebody that may find themselves in the middle of something. The only way that you're going to make it over, the only way you're going to make it to the shore, the only way you're going to make it to your promise when God says you need to be where you are a little while longer is that you have to remember the truth of God's word. So the people at the time were given this word to remember during the 70 years, and I could imagine if I was there, I would have to get up every morning in those 70 years, and I'd have to remind myself that the Lord has a promise for me. I'd have to remind myself that the Lord has a plan for me. I'd have to remind myself that the Lord has a future for me. I wish there was somebody right now who feel like you've been in the storm too long, but God says remind yourself daily that the Lord has a plan for you. Remind yourself daily that the Lord has a promise for you. Remind yourself daily that the Lord has a future for you. Every now and then you might not be able to get your prayer partner on the line, so the people of God got to be able to speak a word over themselves in the middle of the struggle, because every now and then in your middle the enemy recognizes that you're weak and he wants to take you out before you ever see the fullness of the promises of the Lord. Let me see if I can help you right here. I love Paul. Paul says something. In Bible study, an amazing question was raised. The question was this: does God really put more on us than we can bear? Anybody heard that phrase before? He'll never put more on us than we can bear. It was a great conversation, but the answer was found by the Apostle Paul, because somebody right now is in the middle. And you say, yeah, I heard that before. But if y'all knew what I was going through right now, I think you might feel like and agree that this may be more than I could bear. So 2 Corinthians, this is what Paul says. Paul is testifying. He's sharing in a letter. We think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure. You hear Paul talking, right? He wrote at least 11 to 12 books in the New Testament. He was blessed and highly favored. He was healed, set free, and delivered. But guess what? He is writing right now saying that what he is going through was beyond his ability to endure. You do know that Paul was one that could pray over somebody else's life and their life would change. You do know that Paul could pray for somebody to be cured and they will receive a blessing. But while Paul was able to bless and to cure everyone, there was something going on in Asia that he did not have the ability to endure himself. The text goes on to say this: and we thought we would never live through it. Matter of fact, this is what Paul said. This, a church folk said this. He said this. In fact, we expected to die. You heard that, right? This is a church man saying this. I'm going through something so hard. I'm blessed and highly favored. But what I'm going through right now, I don't expect to live through it. And matter of fact, I'm expecting to die. Matter of fact, let Sister Barbara sing at my eulogy because I'm not going to make it home to see Mama. But the text says this. But as a result, watch this, we stop relying on ourselves and learn to rely on God. Men and women of God, I'm just trying to help you. That if you find yourself in the in-between of life, if you find yourself stuck in the middle, maybe God has you there because he needs you to learn some new tricks. He needs you to experience some new power. He needs you to understand something about yourself. He needs you to understand before you get to the other side, the assignment that is on your life is so great that you will not make it, and the assignment will fail if you don't learn now how to rely on him. The assignment that is on your life is so special and will bless so many people that the devil is coming against you with everything that he has. And if you don't learn now how to call on the Lord, if you don't learn now where your help comes from, if you don't learn now to stop relying on your hookup, if you don't learn now to stop relying on your resume, if you don't learn now to stop relying on what people say, if you don't realize now where your help comes from, when I take you out of your middle, you're going to mess up everything that I got for you. But I'm glad today, thank God today, that God is up to something. And this is what God says